corner, my God, there were maybe like, I think it was like 80 people from my community that were on the sand with signs and clapping and cheering, and it was just, you know, you have a vision for how things are going to play out. You have to. Like, you have to have a clear vision of how things are going to work, otherwise you can't believe that, you know, you can do it. And I just didn't have that. That wasn't in the picture. I didn't imagine all of those beautiful faces. You know, my year 8 science teacher, my cross country coach, just so much pride on people's faces. It was just the most incredible gift, and I'll carry it with me for the rest of my life.
Did the thought ever occur to you when you were thinking about this trip to just stay at home and tell your boys to get outside more and get off the computer and not actually go and set the example yourself?
Absolutely not, no way.
Why not?
I consider myself, you know, I'm a leader, and I want to lead my children, and I think that's what, to me, that's what great mothers do. Great mothers are leaders, and I didn't want to lecture on life from the sidelines. I didn't want to say, you know, do this and go out and be your best and achieve your potential and shoot for the stars and all of those great cliches we throw around. I wanted to live them and set the example, and set the example that, you know, you can achieve anything if you have a really clear vision, you work very, very hard, you know, you shape shift and are flexible, but you don't change the ultimate vision. And I set about just getting the skills that I needed, and I wanted to set that example. And I guess I realised that, you know, anything is possible is not just a cliche, but a threshold. You know, that's a real threshold. And once you step over that, once you sort of start to cut away those thoughts that tell you can't do something, and those things in the back of your head that kind of make you feel like you know, you won't do this, you won't do that. Once you shut all those voices up, I think the universe opens up to you. There's nothing you can't do, and that's really what I want them to see.
Well, you're proving that. So you seem to have got a new lease on life since you became a mother. Why did life get more exciting after you became a mother, rather than you just say, well, certain things aren't achievable because I've got the kids to look after?
I think they breathed new life into me, and it wasn't always like that. I mean, I had a tricky time early on. You know, I was 26 when I had my first baby, and none of my other friends had babies. It was really something I was feeling like I was finding my way on quite alone at the time. And I think I just had a real moment where I thought, no one's going to toss me a lifeline. Like, this is my life, and I want to be the best version of who I can be for my family, and that's, I guess, where I made that shift from being a passenger in life and sort of took the wheel. And so my children are hugely inspirational for me. They motivate all of my decisions and our direction, and we feel very much like a team.
So you do a bit of speaking and getting out and spreading your message about your travels. Have you seen any examples of people who are living more adventurous lives because of the example you're setting?
Oh, that's a lovely question, Barnes. Look, I think I'm definitely creating ripples. You know, I think my trips created things that are rippling out, and sometimes, you know, those ripples circle back and you hear lovely stories, and other times, you know, you don't really know the impact that you're having, and I think that's a really nice thing too. Because I know for me, there are people who have hugely impacted me. Their ripples have impacted me, and they don't really know. And I make a point of letting people know when I can, you know, that something they've done's impacted me. And I hope that I have a positive impact. I know I try and spend time with, you know, teenage girls, and get out in the bush and hang out and listen to them, and I hope I can set a good example there.
So what sort of men do you want your 2 young boys to grow up to be?
Oh, men of courage. You know, I want them to not be afraid, you know, not just in the outdoors. I think the outdoors is a fantastic metaphor for, you know, a lot of those really great character tenets that you hope to instill in your children, but I guess I just mean men of courage in that they make good choices, and they do the right thing, and that they're led by their conscience, and they're not afraid to stand up and not afraid to speak up, and I want to raise leaders.
Well, they've got sensational examples. Hayley and your husband Mick are setting a perfect example of what kids should grow up to want to be like. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's lovely. Thank you so much, Barnes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we've got the Everyday Greatness Shuffle. I'll call in Shane Moloney, fearless trek leader of Kokoda Track. Some people's lives are an incredible story because of the decisions they make. Others' lives are an incredible story because of the reactions they have to circumstances that are thrust upon them. Shane Moloney, my next guest, is both of those things. The decisions Shane has made in his life are that he is a trek leader with Kokoda Spirit. He takes groups of people from all walks of life across the wartime Kokoda track in the jungle of Papua New Guinea. Shane is also a surf lifesaver and has been for the last 23 years, and he served in the Army Reserves for 4 years. The circumstances that have been thrust upon Shane are that his son is partially deaf and has got by with a hearing aid for most of his life, and his daughter was diagnosed with Lyme's disease. And the way Shane reacted to both of his son's medical dramas have been remarkable. In 3 weeks' time, Shane is taking his son on a father-son Kokoda trek with Kokoda Spirit. Shane and his family hold regular fundraisers to get the treatment his daughter needs for her Lyme's disease, which is is only available in countries other than Australia. Shane Moloney is a bloke who's not letting life dictate to him how it needs to be lived. He's grabbed it by the scruff of the neck and he's telling life how he's going to live it. And I'm pleased to say that Shane Moloney joins me now. Shane, welcome. Before I start, I believe you have something you want to say?
Yes, I hope you have found your inner peace on a trip of a lifetime, Mary.
G'day, Mary. So, how did you feel as a father watching your children get hit with such big medical dramas?
Oh, look, it was a whammy. It really hit us. We closed together as a family. My wife and I, Kate, looked within ourselves to find the strength that we needed to overcome the adversities that come our way. We had to be strong for our kids and basically lead them through those circumstances with courage and show resilience ourselves so they too could have the resilience to get them through.
Do either of your children's illnesses hold them back from doing anything they want to do?
My son Kyle probably not. He kind of grabs it by the scruff of the neck and keeps going forward. He's had a bit of help along the way, but he's at a point in his life now where I don't think it's holding him back. With my daughter Chanel, she has lost a big chunk of her life, and it's been extremely hard for her, and she's still not completely out of the woods. But I know that through that adversity, that she's learning some serious life lessons, and that will keep her in good stead, for later in life.
So what is Lyme's disease? Just explain it for us.
Lyme disease is generally caused by the bite from a tick. It's not recognised in Australia. It's highly recognised in the Northern Hemisphere. The Borrelialis infection, which comes with the bite of the tick, invades every cell of your body and can mimic literally 100 different diseases. So it's extremely hard to detect. It causes lethargy, anxiety, depression. A lot of patients they have no quality of life. If treatment isn't sought, obviously, you can die from it. And unfortunately, for a lot of sufferers, it gets too much for them; they take their own lives. So it does have not only for the patient, but for the great family, it really affects everyone. But until the Australian government really recognise it's a problem, there are a lot of patients in Australia that aren't getting the treatment they need or the early diagnosis that they need.
Can sufferers get the treatment they need in Australia?
They can get diagnosed to a certain extent. The issue with Lyme is for every year you go undiagnosed is another year of treatment. So caught early, it's as simple as taking some antibiotics. Caught undiagnosed for a number of years, unfortunately, you've got to go offshore for treatment. So up until recently, it was Germany. We're lucky enough that we found treatment in Malaysia, which is a bit closer to home. But yeah, most people with late stage Lyme have to go overseas for treatment.
So that must be an expensive exercise. How have you and your family provided the avenues for your daughter to get treatment in Germany and Malaysia?
Yeah, it hasn't always been easy. You know, we exhausted any collateral we had until it got to a point where we needed help, and we then sought help from the greater community by fundraising. And that fundraising went a long way to getting Chanel treated overseas. So it took a couple of trips to Malaysia to get it done. And obviously it's still ongoing. The treatment will, she'll never fully recover from it, but the hope is to get her the best quality of life that she can. And we're on track to do that. We're getting there slowly, but we'll keep chipping away.
Beautiful. Does it make you proud as a father, or how proud does it make you as a father, watching your two kids who have fairly significant medical challenges just take their lot in life and keep putting one foot in front of the other?
It makes me immensely proud. Sometimes I look at them and I wonder where it comes from, how they can drag that strength from, just from their ages. They haven't had the benefit of life experience that the rest of us have. So, no, it makes me very, very proud. And I would just, keep supporting them and loving them, and I mean, that's all they need. Yeah.
So tell me about your story. What made you want to start taking Kokoda treks through Papua New Guinea?
I've always been an avid reader of Australian military history. I'm a very staunch and loyal supporter of all those that have served this country and made it what it is. When I turned 40, I decided to do the Kokoda trip with a good mate of mine, Dean, and was just blown away by the experience, the diversity of the country, especially the story of Kokoda. It's up there with the story of Gallipoli, and it really solidifies what being an Australian is. And I just felt compelled that I needed to spread the story, and took it from there. I just had to get back over there. The experience, I initially did it with a group of Year 11 students, and to watch the personal growth in that just over a week period really blew me away, and I could just see the benefits for anyone who did it outside of Kokoda. The lessons they learnt there, they could take back home and basically use it in everyday life to better themselves, to make them better people.
So you've led Kokoda treks twice a year for the last umpteen years.
Yep.
Does it get boring?
No, never. I'm very blessed that the people that turn up to do the Kokoda track are some of the best Australians you'll ever meet. They are the pick of the crop. They're all there for the right reasons, and because they come from so many diverse backgrounds and careers, to watch them come together on that journey, for me, that is the Australian spirit, and I get to physically watch it happen before my eyes, and I'm very proud to be part of that implementation. So I'm just lucky. Like, it's always different. It's just, yes, it's the same track, but the weather conditions are different, the people are different, the time frames are different. the jokes are always different. The banter that happens along the way, it really makes for a fantastic journey.
So you're preparing to take your own son
Yeah.
on Kokoda in 3 weeks.
Yes.
You would have come across some father-son experiences that have been really emotional and inspiring. What are some of the best stories you've seen?
They always are. I had one a couple of years ago, father and son, Wayne and Shane Simpson. Wayne, the father, his father actually fought on Kokoda, so it was very special for him. He was early 70s, but never looked like stopping, you know. The pride there, his son Shane that came along with him was just an absolute character and was there to support his father. And I suppose it almost, you know, the tide had turned where the son was taking the role as the father and the father was the son again. But, you know, the special characters and, you know, obviously we still get in touch with them.
Yeah. So when you get home from leading groups across Kokoda, how do you feel that you've just led big groups of people across this infamous wartime trek and literally changed people's lives?
It's always rewarding. Even before I even get home, like at the airport, I'm watching like social media feeds and I'm watching them all talk to each other. I'm watching them set up their own private media chats, and even the months and the years later, I follow them and I can see them. They're travelling the country to catch up. The friendships that are made on Kokoda are lifelong friendships, and it doesn't matter whether you're a banker or a bricklayer. That bond is there, and it makes me feel really proud to have been there, to have guided them across, but not only hopefully shared a little bit of wisdom along the way and taught them the lessons or the life lessons there that the boys did in 1942, that the struggles and their sacrifices they made then were there for us to use now. Like, history might be a long time ago, but the lessons they learned are here for us to use today.
So as well as doing your Kokoda treks, you're also a surf lifesaver.
Yep.
And you served in the Australian Army Reserves. What is it about roles that put value into other people's lives that make it so attractive to you and keep pulling you to those sort of positions?
I fit very well in a leadership role. I feel like I've got a lot to give. I find it, especially the surf lifesaving, being part of a bigger entity, being there to serve the public, and not only that, but mentoring younger people and younger kids as they come through. Once again, teaching them some skills that they can use for the rest of their life. But just giving back. You know, we all take everything for granted. Like a day at the beach is a lot of fun, but you know, it's just nice to be there. Nice to help out.
Yeah. So Shane Moloney, I should have said at the start, actually led me across Kokoda. So Shane, thank you for leading me and for leading Wayne and Shane. And thank you for joining us on Everyday Greatness.
Thank you, Barney.
Now to the Everyday Greatness Shuffle and get Matt Kershaw to come and join me. Matt, welcome.
Thanks, mate.
Real people these days are getting harder and harder to find, but Matt Kershaw is one of the realest going around. Matt is completely WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. As a young kid, Matt was a typical young school kid. He hated public speaking, especially when it came to telling his own story. But after he left school, he spent his time empowering young Australian school students as a volunteer and later as CEO of Australian youth leadership group YLead. Matt used to tell his own story fairly often to help these school kids realise that even despite what disappointments they go through, they can keep putting one foot in front of the other. Matt hasn't told his story for quite a while, which is really unfortunate. When Matt was a volunteer at YLead, doctors found he had a tumour wrapped around his spine. And after he went in for life-threatening surgery, he came out, and despite his parents' and his doctor's advice, he decided he'd try and climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa with YLead. Matt didn't make it to the top on his first attempt, but he's since gone back and stood on top of the highest point on the African continent, the peak of Mount Kilimanjaro, 13 times. Matt is one of the realest blokes going around. He led YLead with a strength, dignity and leadership that inspired the people around him who touched him. Matt these days has stepped down from his role as CEO of YLead, but he's still trying to empower people of all walks of life to get through any disappointment they have in their lives. Matt is so incredibly real, he sums up his own life by saying that he's glad that most people won't have heard of him. And he describes his place in life as the position he plays in his rock band. Matt is the drummer, and he's happy sitting up the back, out of the limelight, keeping a steady beat for people who need a steady hand in life. And Matt Kershaw joins me now. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Barnes. Thanks for the intro.
No problem. Before I start, I believe you have something you want to say?
I do, mate. Just want to say, Imogen Kicker, congratulations. Well done for getting out of your comfort zone and giving an amazing speech on Serena Guthrie.
Very good. Nice work, Jimmy. Now just bear with me, Matt, so I can find out what I'm going to say. So tell me about the sort of kid you were at high school.
Mate, I was just your typical kind of blend-in kid. Like I had no real extraordinary talents. I wasn't at the top of the class. I wasn't getting picked for the firsts. I wasn't winning leadership roles. I was just that kid that sort of sat in the middle. And I sort of liked it there. It meant that I didn't have to deal with too much and I could just sort of fly under the radar. But I was a kid that was involved in a lot of different stuff as well. I think, I was in the music program, the sports program, the leadership program. I tried to do decent in the classroom. But for me, it was just about, I was kind of happy just flying under the radar. I didn't need to be the one sort of commanding all the attention, I guess.
And where did you want to be, or who did you want to be when you left school?
I was really lost when I left school, to be honest. I think that question just terrified me. I think I had so many different interests across a wide variety of sort of areas, and the idea of choosing one was probably the hardest thing. So I think I defaulted to the one that, most young people that grew up in my area, went to a school like mine, sort of did, which was go to uni, get a degree, put a suit on, work in a big building here in the city, earn a good wicket, drive a nice car, own a big house, and sort of like that was the life that I think I defaulted to because I just had absolutely no idea who I wanted to be or what I wanted to do.
And did you have any friends at school who were displaying the confidence and the leadership and the knowing where they wanted to be after school that you wanted?
Yeah, definitely. In lots of different ways. I think there were some of the young people around me and some of my peers and friends that they had a direction, they were dead set, this is where I'm going. Others not so much, and I was also surrounded by, I tried to sort of mix with as many interesting and diverse people at school as I could, and one in particular, it's quite a cool sort of example. A friend of mine, Carl, he and I attended the YLead Leadership Conference together when we were in Year 11, going into Year 12. I was the kid that sort of just sat in the corner and just watched it all unfold. He was the one that was always like in there, hands-on, and that was sort of the way that he lived his life. And after the conference, we were invited back to like sort of, an extra event, and I'd sort of written it off. I wasn't going, but Carl's enthusiasm and his confidence, and he sort of pretty much drove to my house, dragged me out of the front door, put me in his car and said, mate, we're going to this event. Like, we've got to be there. And it was at that event that I actually got offered the opportunity to volunteer for YLead. And I often think, had he not had that confidence and that sort of charisma and that energy about it, like I probably wouldn't be here. And the whole, how my life panned out afterwards would be totally different. And I think, we heard about the ripple before. Carl's ripple on me has just been one of the most extraordinary examples you could ever imagine.
Beautiful. So everything you wanted out of life, whether it was middle of the road or the best in the world, was put under a cloud when you had your life-threatening surgery. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so it was a pretty kind of crazy set of circumstances. Saturday morning, I was going to go and play soccer. As normal, I was playing fairly elite level of soccer, and I was fit, I was healthy, and just something didn't feel right. And that evening, my mum, being the kind, caring, loving mum she is, said, "Matt, we'll go to the doctors." The doctor looked at me and said, "Look, you look okay. You look like you've dropped a bit of weight. Let's kind of do a bit of testing." And long story short, I got an X-ray and they found a 17 centimetre tumour growing out of my spine and in my chest. And it was sort of like in the click of a fingers, life went from very normal to all of a sudden sort of everything just. It's hard to describe. It was like everything just stopped, and like any thought of a future or it almost became irrelevant, and it just became this sort of survival, this is happening and I've just got to get through it sort of moment. So yeah, I think for me that was really the turning, I call it my epic moment, but it was the turning point. It sort of just stopped me meandering down this path that I wasn't really sure where I was going, and it forced me to take stock of what was happening and also probably take a bit of leadership over my own life. And that was pretty empowering, although at the time it definitely didn't, like that's definitely with retrospect, it didn't feel like it in that moment.
Yeah. So when you came out of hospital, knowing how close you got to not being here, did you see the world differently?
Oh, totally. I think, and it's something that's carried through, and usually it's a great thing. Every now and then it kind of probably frustrates some people, but sort of that every day could be a last sort of mentality. And it means that I think I've just become far more connected to the present moment and far more spontaneous and far more willing to grab an opportunity and run with it. And I think I was probably the play it safe kid pre that. And now I'm sort of like throw caution into the wind a little bit more, fly by the seat of your pants, see where you end up. And I don't need to know what the next 10 years is going to look like now. As long as I'm happy with what I'm doing right now, I've got a lot more trust and faith that things will unfold nicely if I'm maximising the opportunities that are happening in the present.
Yeah. So you took over as CEO of YLead not long after that experience. Before I get on to what sort of organisation YLead is, tell us about that first attempt to make it up Kilimanjaro. Did you get, what happened that you didn't get to the top?
Yeah, so it was about 11 weeks from getting out of hospital to getting to Tanzania, and I'd lost about 20 odd kilos, and I'd been lying in bed flat on my back, staring at the ceiling for close to 3 weeks, and I was going through spine rehab, chest rehab, and one of my surgeons actually planted the idea. He said to me, "Matt, there's no medical reason why you couldn't have a go," and that was sort of. Most other doctors weren't on that page, but he was like, have a crack. And sort of in that mindset, I was like, why not? And I was actually reading the Lance Armstrong story at the time. And I know, his story's been tainted a little bit now, but I was reading the story of him kind of like dragging himself to chemo every day. And I'm thinking like, if he can do that, what's stopping me from getting out of bed and doing the staircase and doing the laps of the corridor? So, I put in the work, and it was immense. And I got on the plane and had a crack at Kili, and I got pretty close, but I think really at the end, it was just I'd given 100, I'd given everything. I literally remember sort of slouching over this rock and going to try and get back up again, and my body just said to me, like, you have nothing left. And I tried to kind of crawl. I think I tried to do the worm, like every ounce of energy, and it was heartbreaking to have to say to my guide, we need to turn back. But I think, to be honest, like the lesson that I learned out of that, and again retrospectively, the idea that getting to the top shouldn't necessarily be the goal. The process was more important than the outcome. That sort of message, like in the long run, was probably one of the greatest gifts that the mountain could have given me on that first attempt. Beautiful.
So tell me about YLead. What sort of organisation is YLead?
So YLead has become, and it's always been, it was founded on the idea that it was a university of self-esteem and empowerment for young people. And I was very fortunate that when I was at school, I attended a YLead conference, and it just helped me look at myself through a different lens. I looked at myself through a lens of positivity and optimism and empowerment. I thought, man, more young people need this. And so as a volunteer, I was just sort of doing my bit. But I think when I became, you know, when you're put in a position of leadership, and that sort of happened by accident for me. Like I didn't go in thinking I'm going to be the CEO one day. It sort of panned out that way. It became about like, what is it that young people need in education that they're not getting through the system? And what we found is they're not getting enough of this sort of real life connection with each other, connection to a community that says to them, like, it's important you understand your values, it's important you have passion, it's important you have a positive vision for your life. So what we tried to do is do that, but do that in a way that wasn't like sort of boring chalk talk lecture style stuff, that gave it energy and gave it fun and it made it experiential. And you know, it's kind of like, how do we bring the Kokoda track and what you can learn in that amount of time into a school and empower kids with those same skills? Because you know, I've been fortunate to travel or to go and do these, you know, hikes through the Blue Mountains in Sydney or whatever. How do you bring that learning into a classroom or into a school hall and deliver it in a really innovative way? And so that's really what YLead is. And yeah, and it's remarkable to see the impact we can have on young people just by being that positive voice, but also giving them the skills to have that sense of, or skills I should say, to have that sense of introspection and go, hey, this is what I want to be. And then someone in their corner going, hey, go and make it happen. You can do this. And I think that voice is missing for young people in education. So many of them feel so disempowered and feel like it's a big competition and feel like, you know, they have to be first and all that sort of stuff, rather than have that voice in the back of their head just going, hey, you can do this, you can make this happen, and it's okay to be different, and it's okay to just get out there and make the life that you want to make. It doesn't have to fit into a box sort of thing. So yeah, I've been really proud to lead a movement like that and be a part of it for such a long time.
So you've just recently stepped down as CEO. Your influence and your leadership of the group seems to have inspired a lot of people. Tell me about this necklace you've got on today. Yeah,
so about 6 years ago, 7 years ago now, we had a group of boys that came across to one of our conferences in Brisbane from Rotorua in New Zealand, and they said to me, Matt, we want to take this conference to New Zealand. And I sort of laughed under my breath and said, yeah, sure, you know, like, let me know when your school's on board and you've got, you know, 100 people that want to come, and I'll be there. And about 6 weeks later, we got a phone call from the principal saying, all right, we've got the 100 people, we've got the school, like, when are you coming over? And I never ever thought it would happen. And so we launched what we do here in Australia over in New Zealand, and it literally happened in about 3 or 4 months, and we ran this conference, and it was pretty remarkable. And anyway, I learned a lot about the culture there, and I think that's something that I've just grown to admire and love. And I was presented this is a toki, and it's Māori, I guess, a token of leadership and of strength and of courage, and it was just a gift that was given to me to say thank you, and something I wear really proudly now. Yeah, as you should. Matt Kershaw, thank you so much for coming on Everyday Greatness. Thanks, Barnes. And thank you to my other guests today, Shane, Hayley and Seb. Thank you to our major sponsors, the ARA Group, the crew at Look Studios, and thank you for watching. I hope that when you walk down the street after today, you do it with your head up, your shoulders back, proud of being an everyday Joe Bag of Donuts. Thank you.
Every day, we get things off the ground, keeping you connected and secure. We keep things running smoothly and know the importance of giving back. We're always looking at the bigger picture. We are ARA, reliable solutions for facilities and infrastructure.